It's Tuesday morning. I get onto the quiet coach of an Avanti train with my mum, the quiet coach, and I look for the quietest part of the quiet coach, which is away from the toilets, because whenever anybody goes to the toilets, the flushing is really loud to me, and all the slam at the door. Right at the back, it's quite loud, so I'll go towards the middle. I sit down with my mum, and it's boiling hot. It's nice and quiet, but it's boiling hot, so I go to see if any of the other coaches are just as quiet but also colder. I need the cold because I've got a disease called atopic dermatitis, and the heat, it looks alright today, but the heat triggers it, makes it a lot worse, and if you look at my other videos you'll see what it looks like. So I have to stay as cold as possible, and I had a brain inflammation 5 years ago, and that's left me with really sensitive ears, a condition called hyperacusis, and my ears hurt a lot from loud noises, so I'm always looking for the quietest part of the train. And also, it's not always just loud noises, it's constant noise. With constant noise, the pain in my ear will just build up gradually, and the only way to stop it is to find silence, and then it resets basically. So I go up and down the train looking for the quietest and coldest part. I notice all of the coaches are colder than the quiet coach, so I definitely can't sit there, but there's no seats that are free without a person sitting next to that seat. People look at you like you're a bad person if you go and sit next to them, because people are still afraid of COVID. And so I kept going up and down the train, just double checking to see if there were any 2 free seats together, but there weren't. And also there was a baby in a chair, no, not a chair, a pram. There was a baby in a pram, and it was alone, and nobody was looking after it, and it was crying. And I was like, looking, and I noticed people were looking at me as I was looking at the baby crying, and I kept walking up and down looking for the parents, and there wasn't any, and it was alone for quite a long time. That probably made me look a bit weird, because I'm just walking up and down looking at a baby, but I was actually really nervous for it. I looked for train staff, but there weren't any around. But then eventually the father came back from the bathroom. He'd left it alone, and he came back, and then finally I could, have peace of mind and walk away. So I still couldn't find any free seats, actually, that didn't have a bag on. And then finally I found this couple, I didn't even know they were a couple, sitting opposite each other on a table, and I didn't actually want to sit there because there was the suitcase holder next to the table, which meant I couldn't really see out the windows. I like to look out the windows. I wanted to sit next to the guy, because I don't like sitting next to girls, because I know that my mum feels really uncomfortable sitting next to a guy on the train. A lot of girls I've talked to said they feel uncomfortable sitting when a guy comes and sits next to him. So I wanted to actually sit next to the guy, but unfortunately he was taking up 1.5 of the seats, and the woman opposite him was taking up only 1.2 of the seats. So I sat next to her, and because she was taking up more than 1 seat, part of my leg was sticking out, so that made me kind of nervous for the whole journey, because I had to keep, if I heard any noises in front or behind me, I had to keep checking to see if it was somebody wanting to walk past. I didn't want to get walked into, and I didn't want to be a nuisance to anybody, so I would keep checking behind me every time somebody come past and go to the side, because it has happened once before where somebody walked past me and their hand went into my ear, and that wrecked because of the hyperacusis. And the second I sat down, I noticed that the guy opposite the girl looked at me like he didn't want me to be sat there at all, but I had no choice because I couldn't go back to the quiet coach because it was really hot. So then I was looking out the window for most of the trip, but also I noticed at one point the girl, I keep saying girl, but she was a woman, she was about 8 years older than me. She wanted to get something out of a bag that was under the table. So then she put hands under the table, lifted up the bag, and she couldn't get it out from under the table because her body was in the way. So I looked to where she was trying to lift a bag, and she's doing it for ages, trying to pull her bag from out under the table. So I'm thinking to myself, should I lift this part of the table so she can get a bag out? I noticed as I was looking, the guy across on the table looked at me like really angrily, like, "Why are you looking down there?" kind of face on him. It's like he was thinking that I just wanted to sit next to this girl when I didn't, like I was not interested at all. But yeah, and then throughout the journey, the girl sitting next to him, opposite him, kept saying to him that he looked really sick and looked really ill. That was making me nervous. and he kept making weird noises like he was going to be sick, but still I kept like looking out the window. He never looked at me once, so he couldn't possibly see if I was looking at him or if I was looking out the window. He couldn't see where my eyes were. He could only possibly see me in the periphery of his vision. So if I'm looking out of the window that's next to him and he's sat there, you're probably just going to think I'm looking at him, which is annoying because unless you actually look at somebody, you can't exactly tell where their eyes are. So then I was getting a message from a friend. I was talking to my friend on my phone for a good hour. I was writing a status about the fact that I was going to London to talk about my disease and how I've been getting on with it for a TV show that's going to be on this month or next month. So yeah, I was definitely not. It was clearly obvious that I'd got stuff to do and wasn't just there being a weirdo. And then his wife, I didn't know it was his wife until later on, but this guy's wife, who's I'm next to, says she needs the bathroom, she needs to go to the toilet. So I get up and I'm even thinking about, the table has this little flappy thing so you can lift up half the table to get out. And I was then nervously thinking, I'm pretty sure by seeing her, she'll struggle to get out without me lifting up the table for her. But I thought that might offend her. She might get offended if I, just look at her and then lift up the table for obvious reasons. So I left it. I just got up. She was nice, smiled at me and said thank you. And then got up and then, surprise, knocked into the table and lifted it up and struggled past it. And then I'm thinking, well, I should have just moved it for her. But I didn't, because I didn't want to offend her and make her feel self-conscious. So that happened, and just as I was about to sit back down, the man across the table said, "Excuse me, mate, just mind if I sit there so I can sit next to my wife?" Next to my wife. I was like... So then I went and sat next to where so the same side as where I was sitting, but not right next to the window. I wouldn't sit right next to the window because it's loud. He then went off to the toilet, but he went off for a while, and I was just gazing out the window for the rest of the trip. And occasionally I'd look down the aisle because I like when I can look down the aisle and see all the trees going past on both sides. I really enjoy that, and it's something I recently discovered that it can do and focus on both sides. It's really, don't know what the word is, but it makes you feel really high. So then it was actually much louder on the side where he was. There was some annoying rattle coming from the suitcases. So I wanted to go to a different seat, but I didn't actually go to a different seat because I was then thinking, if I go now that I'm not sitting next to his wife, he's going to think that I wasn't interested in sitting in that space now that he told me to sit somewhere else. So I didn't move straight away because I didn't want them to think that that was the purpose, that I was there to sit next to that girl who I was not interested in at all. It's so frustrating. Yeah, the way he kept looking at me. Anyway, but yeah, so then I hear some people saying, right, tickets, rail cards, get all those out. And I look behind me and I see that it's the train guards coming. And now I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be that typical problem now where I get up my phone and the ticket doesn't work because technology still isn't working great these days, is it? You take it and then they go, oh, sorry mate, that's not working. It's not scanning. Can you put it up again? No, that's not. Are you sure that's the right ticket? Yes, I'm sure it's the right ticket. And then finally it works. Or they just go, well, it does look like the right ticket, so I'll let you off. To avoid that scenario, I went back to the quiet coach where my mum was sat, because usually if I'm sat with my mum, if my ticket doesn't work, or her ticket doesn't work, or sometimes her ticket doesn't work because the screen's broken, if we're together they just say, oh, are you travelling together? Oh, okay, yeah, that's fine. Rather than, son, yeah, you must be telling the truth. So I got up, started walking off, calmly walking off to go to the quiet coach, and they started shouting for me. And I'm like, wondering what's... And just as I get into the centre part, he catches up with me, man and woman, both working for Avanti. He's like, excuse me mate, I need to ask you questions, because you just ran off from us. And he's like, so, I need to ask, are you okay? Are you okay? Because we've had someone come up to us and saying, you're acting weird. And you look like you're in the wrong place, and you're acting weird, and it's not right, and you're staring at him, and you're making him uncomfortable. And I was thinking, what the hell? What could this be? Was it because I was like looking through the parent of the baby was for ages? I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then he goes, like, what's this? We've been told you're wearing a hospital gown. What's this? What's going on with the shirt? What's going on with your shirt? And I tell him, I've got atopic dermatitis. My neck is really itchy, and so I cut the collars. So that it stops being itchy, because if it rubs against me, this part is really, really itchy, and then it makes me really uncomfortable. I'm looking for the coldest and quietest part of the train, and I know it starts to sound really ridiculous because I've got two problems. I got the hyperacusis and I'm affected by heat, and I think some people, they just don't believe that you can be affected by heat in such a way. And he was, oh yeah, that's another point he said, is that this person's told us that you look like you're a hospital runaway and you've got away from the hospital. So, and you know, we came and you started running off, and have you come from a hospital? And it's like, really it was really frustrating, and I was really nervous. And he said I was staring at him, and I was like, I haven't been staring at anybody. I've just been enjoying myself, enjoying looking out, because this is my last trip to London that's planned. Might not go back for years. So I enjoy looking out the window. I couldn't get away from him. He was, you know, as he was pointing at my shirt, it was like all this in my face. And I was just trying to stand away. I have a problem with, and I don't know if that was also to do with the brain inflammation, but when people are around my face or really close to me, I have to stand back because it makes me nervous. But yes, he was talking to me, and I've got a woman also from Avanti standing there staring at me like this. And it didn't make me feel good at all. And then he wouldn't let me go and sit back. He wouldn't let me go and sit back down in that space. He was saying, can you go and sit somewhere else to keep the peace? And I was like, peace? And then he started saying, well, I know that you can be in your own little world, can't you? You can be in your own little world. I've had that problem as well myself, where, you know, I'm just thinking about stuff and I don't realise that I'm just staring at people. So, you know, I know it's not your fault, but he was literally just taken the side of the person that had complained and said, I must definitely have been staring at them. It couldn't possibly be that they weren't even looking in my direction to see if I was actually looking at them or not. Or that the person didn't even want me sat next to him at all. Like, right from the start, as soon as I sat down next to the guy, you could tell. He only looked at me. And usually, as well, if you're sitting next to somebody on a table, they usually smile at you and go, nod at you. And he didn't. His wife did. And his wife was polite to me, and I think that just must have wound him up even more. But no, he didn't, so you started to see right from the start. Am I the person that's crazy, or doesn't fit into society, or the antisocial person? Or is the person that acted completely different to everyone else that I've ever sat opposite? Was he the one that was antisocial? Because I feel like whatever I did, he would have got up and he could have told somebody, just because he didn't want to. And so as well, when he asked me to swap spaces with him and sit next to his wife, and I didn't sit next to him because his bag was across the table, so I would have literally been sitting staring at the bag. Also, he was taking 1.5 of the seats up. So yeah, he went and sat next to her, and he just like slung his arm around her and squeezed her against him like really possessively. And then obviously nobody could get past him because his wife was taking up 1.2 of the seats, and then he was taking up 1.5 of the seats. So then his whole half of his body was not sat on a chair, and then his arm was sticking out. So he was sat halfway across the aisle. I'm just being factual there. I'm not meaning to be disrespectful, but it was just what was happening. It was what I saw. Because I even struggled to get past him when I got up, and everybody else was struggling to get past him. So yeah, this train guard just wouldn't believe me, wouldn't let me go sit back down, and then he was like asking where I was going, not really believing that I wasn't a hospital runaway, and then I was like, I can't go sit back on that coach, because it's really warm, and I've got this problem, I've got this disease. And he just wouldn't stop talking, and I started realising anything that I said was completely wasted on him. So I just walked off to get my mum. And then finally my mum saw that I've got somebody with me questioning, and then he's like, are you his mother? Are you his mother? She's like, yes. Is he with you? Yeah, well, we've had people, we've had someone complaining, and he said that he's staring at him and he's uncomfortable and he's hospital runaway and didn't like. And I was like, oh, so was it a guy? Because to me, you could actually understand if it might have been a girl in the distance and she thought I was staring at her and it was making her uncomfortable. But no, it was the only guy that was in where I could have possibly looked. And that just really made it even more like I know that somebody's lied and got me in trouble, because I definitely was not staring at that guy. That guy was the only person that could have possibly thought I was staring at him, because everybody else, well, there was only actually a couple of people that could see me. If even a couple. I can only remember one girl in the distance. And his eyes like went, oh, well, I can't say if it was a guy or a girl because I don't want to, it doesn't really matter. But he'd already said he. So I knew it was, he'd accidentally let it slip. He finally said, well, I can turn the temperature down on Coach A then, but I won't tell anybody because I might start getting complaints about it being too cold. He wouldn't have got any complaints because he was absolutely boiling. It was ridiculous, it was boiling. So yeah, that was that, and I felt awful and really sad that I'd been stopped from sitting where I wanted to sit and made to feel like a problem, especially when I did everything I could to not be a problem. I purposely chose to try and not sit next to any girls. I always do that because I don't want to make any girl feel uncomfortable, and I was searching for the parent of that baby that was crying alone, and I then even came to my mind that I don't want to go to a guard on the train to ask to go and look at that baby because I didn't want to embarrass the parent or I didn't want to alarm other people. But I could see people that were suspicious of me when I was looking for the parent of the child. So that backfired as well. It's everything I did backfired. And even as I was looking at the wife of the man opposite me, and she was trying to take a bag out, and I was thinking to myself, should I lift the table to help her get a bag out? Because she clearly can't, because her body is in the way of getting the bag out. Even that backfired on me. But yeah, and then when we got off the train, I saw him he would not let go of her, and it's frustrating. That was his problem, not mine. And then I got picked on. As I'm back on to the Coach A now, I daren't look anywhere. I'm constantly trying not to make eye contact with anybody because now I'm afraid anybody's going to say I'm staring at them. And it was really, I was scared of being picked on again. I'm afraid of looking at anyone now. My haircut, which is completely shaved because of the fact that if I've got any hair, it falls out in clumps. Same as my eyelashes and my eyebrows fall out in clumps. And also, the more hair I've got, the hotter my head is, and then that makes it more itchy. So I don't want that. Also, having water on my skin dries it up really bad, and so I can't really shower often. So I try and make sure I'm in cold for that reason as well, so I'm not sweating. So yeah, and I think Avanti in this case should give me some kind of card as to say I'm fine to travel alone, and that if anybody thinks I'm a weird hospital runaway, which apparently it does happen according to that guard, they're wrong, because I've got a card from Avanti which allows me to travel on their trains. Because now I'm afraid of going back because I'm going to get an Avanti train guard coming up to me again and saying, because of some guy, some antisocial guy. It does bug me that I'd literally sat down and I thought, wow, that's a bit weird that he's not smiled or anything. Nobody's ever done that before. So yeah, that was that. And then I tried to carry on my life as normal. So on the train journey home, I took my case right to the quiet coach again. And I've noticed with these quiet coaches, it's so frustrating. They've got the signs up, but then half the time people don't notice the signs, so they're on the phones yapping away. Or it tends to be the one where they've got the volume turned up the loudest of the announcer, so it's "Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen." So he sat there, and then this really loud bing will come on, louder than on all the other coaches, and then they'll start announcing through the microphone, it'll be all distorted. Then they have to announce every time that there's a shop on board the train, and then you have to listen to them talk about what's going on for first class, even though you're not on the first class part of the train, so it's kind of like taking the mick. And that's a quiet coach, and it's meant for people, who've got autism or they've got sensitivities and they've got problems. And then that's the loudest part, and then they always seem to be, this Avanti train, and I must have been on it multiple times, it's rattling all the time, that coach. It's the loudest coach. And then on this particular one, which was on yesterday, along with the rattling, they'd left the door open at the back, so all the noise from the back was coming in. And again, it was a hot coach. So I looked for a quieter train, a quieter coach, and a colder coach, because I didn't want to be itchy along the train. I made purposely sure this time that I did not make eye contact with anyone, because I didn't want anybody saying I'm staring at them if I look at them for more than 3 seconds as I walk past. I left my suitcase in the quiet coach because, when I get off, I go to get the suitcase from there. And then, as we got to Chester, and Chester was the very first stop, the train has stopped in Chester for absolutely ages. And I'm thinking, the train was delayed, and we'd been following a slow coach in front of us. So I thought, there's nothing, it can't be anything wrong with that. I guess they're just waiting for the coach to get past and they're sorting stuff out. But then I see guards walking up and down the train outside. They're walking up and down the train and they're searching for something. And I'm wondering what it is. And there's a guy walking around with him that wasn't working for Avanti or the train that I was on. I hear somebody go, "Well, we just checked that one and he's not on there, he's clearly not on there, so where is he?" And then these police come up and get onto the coach that I'm on, and they start walking up to me, and I think, oh, for God's sake, I know what's coming. It walks up to me, and also, I should say, when I got on that train, I got on well before my mum did, because I wanted to get straight to the quiet coach, and I wanted to run too, because I didn't want to be. I hate walking alongside trains whilst they're running, because they're so loud. They're actually quieter on the inside. So I get on, and then I walked straight down, and my mum walked slowly towards the coach, so she got on after me, and then she sat in a different coach for a bit because she was exhausted, and she also looked for the quiet coach as well. She looks for the quietest coach. So I ended up not sitting next to my mum for a bit. When it stopped in Chester, quite a lot of people got onto the coach that I was on, and I just thought, well, as soon as the train sets off again, I'm going to go and sit somewhere else where there's less people. But I was waiting for the train to set off, because if it had gone whilst the train was still sat in the platform, you have to walk past the doors, don't you? And the doors are open, and then that's always really loud. So I didn't go, but I was going to go as soon as the train set off again. So yeah, those policemen came up to me, and he said, "We've come to ask you some welfare questions for your well-being." And I'm like, right, okay. And he was like, "So are you okay?" I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. And then he's saying, "Where are you going?" And I said, "Bangor." And he said, "Where have you come from?" And I said, "I just had an appointment in London. I've come from London because I had a doctor's appointment for my atopic dermatitis. That didn't seem to register with him." And he said, Why are you wearing a hospital gown?" And I'm like, "I'm not. It's just a shirt. I've cut the collar." Told him I cut the collar around in the rush because my neck was itchy, and it makes my neck itch if I've got material rubbing on against it. What else did he ask? Because I wrote it all down because it really bothered me. He said, "Can you get off the train so we can question you on the platform, run some searches, because this is delaying the people on this train, and then you can get on the next train." And that was like really, really nervous for me. And I said, well, my mum is on the other coach, so can you speak to her? Because maybe you'll believe her. Then he said, "Can you show us your ticket?" I got my phone up, showed him the exact screen that I'd show to a ticket collector, and he said that it wasn't right, and he said it was just a screenshot from somebody else's phone, so he couldn't accept that. "Can you show him the actual email?" So I started searching for the email, and then that's when he was saying that I was delaying the train, and then he's like, "Where's your mum?" I said, "She's on a different coach. She's on the next coach." And he says, "Why aren't you with your mum?" And then I explained that I've been searching up and down for the coldest part of the train. He didn't believe me. Didn't seem to believe anything about the hyperacusis. And he said, "Why were you walking up and down the coach?" I said, "Because I got a brain inflammation 5 years ago, which means I have to look for the quietest and coldest part of the train because I got sensitive ears. And he's also then, he just didn't believe me. And he was like, well, we've had somebody, unbeknownst to us, we don't know who it was, they've anonymously texted us. They've texted us saying you don't look right and you've got a hospital gown on. So why are you wearing a hospital gown? And I'm like, I'm not wearing a hospital gown. This isn't a hospital gown. Asked me more than once why I'm wearing a hospital gown. I showed him the bottom of it. So it doesn't go past my pelvis. And then later the other one asked me, are you sure it's not a hospital gown? At this point I'm really, really nervous because they're not believing me. They're not believing the truth that I'm telling to them, and they want to get me off the train. And they asked me, what does my mum look like? What's my name? Where do I live? Where do I come from? Where am I going? And they would not have believed me. And I would have been made to get off the train if my mum hadn't have come to that coach. And then as soon as my mum came along, she was like, are you his mum? Are you Tina? Is that a hospital gown? And my mum was like, it's a shirt he's cut up. Because he's got problems with his skin. And I'm like, right, okay, yeah. Well, just got to tell you, we've had somebody text us on the 61 blah blah line, and the search sheet, whatever it is, sorted phrase, condescending phrase, and we got to, come check it out. And she was like, yeah, it's just a shirt. And then I'm like, okay, you're right, okay, yeah, we can go, yeah, we can go. We'll go then, okay, yeah, we'll go. They got off. And after, the train had been delayed for 10 minutes or whatever, we set off again. Then I just felt really, really bad, really nervous, and no, I didn't go on a train again, because I can't travel alone now apparently, because apparently if I'm on a train and I happen to wear any shirt that's cut like this, and I wear this material because this is material that doesn't make my skin react. I'm still trying with doctors to find out what specific materials are making my skin react. As soon as I start wearing shirts like this, the eczema goes down a bit. But yeah, if I try to travel alone, I'll be kicked off the train and they'll have to do searches on me. And it could be even to a point where, I get to the next stop, somebody else gets on, and then they start reporting me, and I'm being stopped and gotten off at every single stop. What would have happened then as well if they'd have got me off because my mum wasn't travelling with me, and then I'm expected to get on the next train, and I specifically chose Avanti and not Transport for Wales trains because Transport for Wales trains are really, really loud and rickety and feel like they're falling apart. And then I've got to pay for another ticket, and the taxi that got us home, I'd have to give him the 50 quid and then give somebody else money, and who would have paid for it for me to go home when it wasn't even... It was just somebody else had reported it. So this needs sorting because I can't now I'm too afraid to get on a train. I can't travel alone without the police possibly coming and questioning me. And it's really affected me and it's made me really sad. And I really enjoy travelling on trains. And now I'm too scared to. And I think there should be some kind of training that tells people that are working in that sector, in that area, that they can't just get people to go somewhere else because somebody, or because they think that there's somebody wrong with them because of their clothing. We're not in a free country at all, because I can't wear a shirt that doesn't cause me aggravation without being questioned and being told to go somewhere else. You're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. Somebody's accused me of not being right and being a suspicious character, and that's all it's taken for me to be made to go somewhere else, or questioned and made to feel really nervous and stressed out. And then stress is a major trigger for my atopic dermatitis as well, makes it way worse. So I'm suffering because of what's happened to me and because of the way those workers have handled the situation. And so there needs to be some kind of training to teach people that you can't do that, and I need a card to be given to me in the meantime to say, no, I'm fine, this is an official card from Avanti, or this is an official card from the head of the police or whatever, to say, no, he is fine, leave this kid alone, that the police can scan so that they know that I'm a normal person. But then that still leaves a problem of, what if there's other people like me, they haven't got the clothes that fit into society because they can't afford to have a professional tailor cut the collar for them. It's just not fair, and it needs to be rectified. So that's what's happened, and it needs to be sorted out. And then if they can't get it sorted so that I'm not getting kicked off trains, then I need a card from the train service that allows me to get onto the next train for free without having to repay, because it's not my control and it's not my fault that I'm being told to get off a train or go to somewhere else because of somebody else's judgment.